In Dragon Ball Z, there is a massive contrast between the future androids and the present androids, with the future androids being significantly more evil as compared to the present ones. But are there reasons to explain this, and do some Dragon Ball fan theories actually have substance? Well, to answer your question, alrighty guys, it is Qaaman here today, and in this discussion, JaxBlade and I are going to be talking about why were the future androids more evil than the present ones. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video. So, Jax Blade. The first thing that we need to discuss is the Android 16 conundrum, in which the theory is, because Android 16 was around, the androids were actually more interested in going after Goku because of his will. And in conjunction to that, 16 completely changed the original alternatives of the androids, and had 16 not been there, they probably would have gone on a killing spree similar to what they did in the future. What do you think about that?
Well, to me, the whole thing was, well, 16, when you think about it, he was like the pillar of like just, you know, a mellow dude. Like, it's always good to have that mellow friend who's just like, hey, man, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Hey, 16, what do you want to do? Let's go kill Goku. Okay, we got something to do now. So it's like good to have some ideas to bounce off each other, because some people can just be so indecisive of what they want to accomplish in the day. And so having someone like, you know, that character like, well, what do you want to do? Let's go get a car and let's go drive and find Goku and kill him, and, you know, let's have fun with it. And it like that to me is just the way I always saw it, was just he bounced ideas. But again, I think I don't think he was the main reason. I think just because of all the timeline warping and, you know, all that jazz, they were just completely different characters. Because didn't they just used to be delinquents when they were, before they were transformed?
Right, and the argument here is really just saying 16 kind of just made the androids change their alternatives, because you remember in the future, Goku was already dead. So there was no Goku to really chase, so they're like, alright, well, Goku's kind of not showing up, let's just kind of go around and do their stuff. But because of 16's like, no, we need to kill Goku now, and since Goku was alive, they actually had more alternatives to go after Goku. So I think 16 could have played a role in why they were less evil. It's not necessarily that they were less evil, he just changed their objectives. Now, the next thing that I think we should talk about here, Jax Blade, is Cell distracting the androids. Now, to me, this one actually has a lot of substance to it, because if you really think about it, Cell was the biggest threat during the Android arc. Remember, in the future timeline, Cell didn't show up for like a while. But in the main timeline, Cell immediately showed up, because obviously he took another Trunks' timeline, went to the past, way more complicated timeline shenanigans. But the point is, Cell showed up and he was trying to absorb the androids earlier. And because of that, whatever plans the Z Fighters or the Dragon Team had to wipe out the androids was quickly shifted by Cell. For example, you know, Piccolo fused with Kami, went to go fight against the Imperfect Cell, figured out what his motives were, and then was like trying to warn everybody about the android threat. So everybody started focusing on what Cell was trying to do, and that completely changed the effects of everything. So if they were gonna kill the androids, or if the androids were plotting to do all of this stuff, Cell coming in completely changed against them. And in a way, Cell kind of made the androids friends, because it's like, all right, well, we all hate each other, but we all hate Cell more, so let's team up. And that's kind of why 17 and Piccolo start fighting.
I would somewhat agree with that. Like, the whole thing with Cell, like, everyone was focused on him, and these guys weren't like psychotic. Because the thing about the future androids is they were like, I watch a lot of horror movies, and they were just really psychopathic, lack of empathy. They were just murdering all these innocent people. Like, there's this one scene where right before Gohan is, you know, murdered by them, they just finished destroying a city, and 17's just blasting, and then you see this person behind 18 like miles away, and he's just trying to crawl away, and 18 just blasts him for no reason, just like, oh yeah, they're ants. It's that to me is just completely different characters from the modern day ones, because the modern day ones just seemed really chill. But yeah, we'll let you, what do you have to say?
Right, I would definitely have to agree that there is a stark contrast, and I think that Cell definitely could have played a role into them becoming that. But the last fan theory of this argument that I think actually makes the most sense would be Dr.Gero could have rewired them a lot better. Now, obviously, This to me makes the most logical sense because remember, we're dealing with time travel, and in time travel there's a butterfly effect, a bunch of events change because of one event changing. And if you think about it, Gero has said before, in even though it's kind of filler in a flashback, and also implying it, you know, in the present timeline, that the androids had massive problems controlling them before, which is why he created that little device to slow them down. I think the theory that makes the most sense is that Gero had problems controlling them before, and when he put them down, he probably rewired them to make them less aggressive so that when he woke them up again, they wouldn't do the same thing. Now, obviously, they still had, you know, disciplinary issues. They still tried to kill him, but I think it makes the most sense that Gero kind of suppressed their aggression when he shut them down so that they wouldn't attack him again. And I think that honestly makes the most sense because really, if you think about it, it would make the most sense because by changing the timeline, in addition to getting 19 and 20 to be the initial androids that go out and kill, even though they were originally supposed to be the real androids anyways, it would make sense that this time, you know, obviously the androids could have been suppressed in conjunction with that.
Okay, I actually think that is one of the most valid points, to be honest, because because remember, like you just said, literally just said a few seconds ago, yeah, Gero said, oh, when I first activated them, they were just wily, acting up aggressive, and, you know, they were just a bunch of, you know, little brats when he found them and kidnapped them, and they were just like a bunch of people no one cared about. And so when he just rewired them, I guess it could be like adding a sedative to the brain to make it go, all right, I don't need to be as aggressive, sort of like a RoboCop, where when he was, you know, freaking out the first time he got his body, I'm not the original one, the remake one, even though I'm sorry to bring that film up, but like he was like really angry, so they just like put some chemicals into his brain and just like he calmed down. So I probably would assume that's what they did with them, since they're cyborgs as well. So just, and they were even acting really mellow when they first, even though I know they were faking it, because, you know, 17 freaking kicked his head off, and that's not a mellow thing to do. But it makes sense that he would just implant something that's just like, okay, yeah, I don't feel like this, I'm gonna rewire him this way. So yeah, I completely agree with that, Qaaman.
Right, so those would be our three theories as to why the androids were, you know, obviously less aggressive in the present as compared to the future. But there's one thing we have to discuss, and it would be the fact that less evil or more evil, the androids kind of had an opportunity to kill all of the Z fighters, and they didn't do it. And this is a stark contrast with the future androids, and I think this is really where the biggest difference between the androids take place, because in the future they did kind of kill everybody, and it's implied that they could have kept Gohan and future Trunks around because they wanted somebody to fight and play with. You know, the special implies this way more than the manga, but in reality, I think that kind of proved that the androids of the present were more about just being delinquents that kind of want to do their own thing as opposed to just killing machines. And I definitely think Dr.Gero rewiring them makes sense, which would also explain why 19 and 16 probably weren't released in the future as well, considering that maybe they just blew up the lab and all those extra androids could have possibly have been there, but they blew up the lab because of their extra aggression.
Like, another thing is, like, that rewiring probably explains why they're stronger. And then, like, the more stronger you have, like, to go by Saitama, like, if you're like so powerful, you're just more chill about stuff. Just like, okay, I don't really have to worry. Like, a great example of this is, like, my good friend is an MMA fighter. He told me most MMA fighters are like really chill people because, like, when you can beat up half the world, you don't really have to worry about someone like attacking you. And so it's one of those things where we know we can F up all the Z fighters. We're just saying, all right, man, you want to go? Let's go. And so they start having, like, when Vegeta and 18 fought, while I thought, like, oh, Vegeta's gonna get his ass kicked, later on it's just revealed, like, she could have just easily, when he was on the ground or turned around screaming, she could have, like, death beamed him like Frieza did. And then 17 could have, like, taken Trunks' sword and impaled him with it, and then he could have easily broken Tien's neck or put a hole through Piccolo. But no, they just decided, you know, we're just gonna knock you guys out and show you completely are nothing to us. So that's what I think.
And not to mention, you remember the Dragon Team Z fighters actually picked the fight with them. I was just recording a future video with Geekdom, and it's kind of interesting because in reality the androids were going to mind their own business, but the Z fighters were the one who wanted to fight them. So in essence, we were kind of the aggressors in this period of time, even though the androids were not as aggressive as they originally were. But ultimately though, guys, I think this has been a fun conversation. Let us know what you think in the comment section below between the little theories that I think make the most sense. Do you think they were originally the same way and 16 just made them change their objectives? Do you think Cell just distracted them from doing what they ultimately wanted to do? Do you think Gero rewired them? Do you think it's all three? Or do you have your own theory as to why you think the future androids were actually more evil than the present ones? Let us know in the comment section below. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate Jordan Jax Blade for joining me today, and I'll post a link to his channel in my description. So with everything else said, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys, and Jordan, take us out.
Keep calm, booyah on, and do not forget, Momenta.